Joining me now to discuss some annual top bipartisan bills for taxpayers and where Trump and Congress should start in the new term is the president of the National Taxpayers Union, Pete Sepp. Pete, thanks for coming back on the program.
Always a pleasure.
So when we're looking at DOGE, when we're looking at trying to save the taxpayers some money, you heard Burchett and Roy saying it all comes down to Congress having the guts. Well, the Republicans control the House and the Republicans control the Senate. And I realize they are not wide majorities, but if Republicans don't have the guts, then all of this is for naught.
Well, I think it's about guts and brains, and that's why we put out a list every year called no-brainers. Bipartisan bills that Congress could easily pass with enough floor time, with enough debate that could make a genuine difference for taxpayers. They aren't all world changers, but they move the needle in the right direction. And I think that's what Congressman Burchett and Congressman Roy are really getting at here. We need to get the muscle memory to start cutting federal spending and reducing waste. One good way, I think, is to tackle improper payments. We talk about it a lot, but we don't report on them enough. They aren't included to a substantial degree in the federal budget that the White House submits. Requiring them to report on the worst programs would give Congress a head start on eliminating those improper payments. Also, to give Congress not only guts and brains, we need to give them a spine. And we could do that from the No Budget, No Recess Act, which means that if Congress can't pass a budget on time, they can't leave town on the taxpayer's dime. Those are the kinds of things we need to start thinking forward about in 2025. And even in this lame duck session, Congress could make progress on those things.
You know, it wouldn't be that difficult to restrain federal agencies to their mission statements, right? So if the Environmental Protection Agency is there to, monitor clean air and clean water, and they're saying, well, to promote climate change initiatives around the world, we're going to fund drag queen programs in, let's say, Ecuador. We could say that is not actually what you're here to do. You are here to protect clean air and clean water in the United States. We're not going to let you and a series of NGOs file for grants and spend millions, if not billions, of taxpayer money and stuff that has nothing to do with your mission statement.
Yeah, exactly. And here's where the executive branch has, I think, a big role. It's not just up to Congress. There are things that the White House and the rest of the administration can do to start helping taxpayers and respecting their rights, how their money gets spent. We need to have a ban right now on these so-called midnight rulemakings. If we don't get a handle on the IRS, EPA, Department of Labor, and others who are really Trump-proofing, as they call it, their various priorities, we're going to come into 2025 with a lot of things to undo, wasting precious time. I mean, look at what just happened over with the Social Security Workers Union. There's a 4-year contract approved that would allow telework for tens of thousands of employees, and the union bosses were bragging that this will protect staffing levels too for the next several years. They are doing this deliberately to keep their departments overweight. And we need to resist those kinds of activities right now. Members of Congress can do this through the oversight committees, simply telling the agencies, we're watching this, and you're going to be in trouble if you keep engaging in this kind of behavior.
Well, what we need is directors of these agencies who are not just going on the Sunday morning talk shows and working on a book and thinking about the next rung on the ladder they're going to climb. I want to see Pete Hegseth or Lee Zeldin going into these agencies, looking at the books and submitting to Congress through DOGE, perhaps with the assistance of DOGE, all the cuts they could make and still maintain their mission statement. And then when they submit that report to Congress, Congress acts accordingly and cuts their funding to the appropriate level.
That's right. And it doesn't take an act of Congress for federal agencies to conduct rigorous internal audits. Strong agency heads can do that by themselves. And just today, former Congressman Billy Long was named as IRS commissioner. he could have a great impact on the agency if he would just take a look at some of the reforms he espoused while he was in Congress to the IRS, restricting their access to too much information so that we don't get these data breaches, looking at how the IRS manages its personnel. All of those things are within the purview of the executive branch. We have to be careful about the balance of power here, but most of the time, the executive branch is engaged in expansion rather than taking a look at the resources they have and saying, how can we better deploy them?
President Trump had that great move. For every one new regulation, you got to withdraw two. He can expand that to 3 or 4, or directors of these agencies can just basically end the effort. Okay, we're not enforcing that regulation anymore. As a matter of fact, we're rescinding it, and we're not. If that was your job as a litigator or a bureaucrat, that was your desk. Sorry, you don't have the power to enforce that anymore because it's no longer on the books, say the president and the director of the agency. I got 30 seconds.
Exactly. Congress often sets minimum staffing levels at certain federal agencies, but in others, there's a lot of flexibility among managers to say, we don't need to go on a hiring binge here. Let's take a look at the employees we have, deploy them more strategically, save taxpayer money, and respect the limits of government.
Also, when you abuse your power, you should lose your power, like Lois Lerner or perhaps some of the people that were involved in the Steele dossier. We could start there. Well, I have to end it there because I'm out of time. So, Pete, Sepp, thanks for joining us.
Many thanks for having me on.